What is the most interesting statistic you know? Of the 30 fastest 100-meter sprint times, 21 were run by athletes who tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. The other 9 were Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt is truly built different. 20% of the mammal species on our planet are different types of bats. There's about 5,000 species of mammals, and about 1,000 of them are varieties of our little winged buddies. Used to work as a meteorologist. More people die from flooding each year than from every other natural disaster added together. A good portion, at least, are people who think their cars can make it through the water when they obviously cannot. 48% of British people wouldn't go to space even if their safety was guaranteed, with the most popular reason being that they just simply didn't have any interest in going. Hey, with how much stuff I've learned about living in space, it sounds like a nightmare. Eating, drinking, digestion, and going to the bathroom are all thrown off by a lack of gravity, along with brushing your teeth or clipping your nails. Working out is one of the most common activities in space, so you don't lose muscle mass from the lack of gravity. Even then, it's common to have a lot of aches and pains when returning to Earth because you didn't really use your feet all that much or something. Not to mention space blindness. That one's a bit hyperbolic, but it is sort of a thing. I'll stay home, thanks. Take pictures for me. A full 6% of Americans reckon they could beat a grizzly bear in unarmed combat. The more interesting one, in my opinion, is that 28% think they couldn't beat a rat. Dragonflies have a 95% hunt success rate, making them the most effective hunters in the world. It's because the dragonfly optic nerve connects directly to their wings, allowing incredibly fast reaction times since the target finding isn't mediated by the nervous system. Also, their flight vectors indicate they fly to where the target will be, instead of where the target is. Since the mid-1970s, the world's population has doubled. 7% of all humans that ever existed are alive today. From this data, I have concluded that humans have a 93% chance of dying. Prostate cancer affects 80% of 80-year-old men at some point in their lives. 80%. I have read somewhere that most men die with prostate cancer, not of prostate cancer. Unless it spreads to or otherwise affects other organs, the mortality makes a lot of sense. Your prostate isn't exactly vital for your survival like most other parts of your body. The question I would have is, why is it so common? Genetics, lifestyle, and odds. If you live long enough, you will get cancer of some kind or another. In 2020, overdose with a synthetic opiate, primarily fentanyl, became the leading cause of death in all Americans ages 18 to 45. Motor vehicle accidents were the former leading cause for this age group. Motor vehicles are the leading cause of death for 18 to 45-year-olds. We need to change that. No, not like that. World War II claimed the lives of 3% of the world's population in 1939. The Three Kingdoms War killed 20%, and the Lushan Rebellion might have killed 1/6 of all people on Earth. Ancient China was fucked. 86% of British citizens reside within 8 miles of their birthplace. Cheddar Man, discovered in a cave in Cheddar, was the ancestor of a schoolteacher in Cheddar, who lived a mile from the cave, 9,000 years later. He said, "Everyone has ancestors 9,000 years ago. I just happen to know where mine lived." The risk of a heart attack is about 20% greater on Mondays for adult men, and 15% greater for adult women. Realizes they have to go to work again. Dies. Motorcycles are 2% of all vehicles in the USA. Motorcycles account for 20% of all road fatalities. I don't ride anymore. In the same vein, less than 10% of Americans do not wear seatbelts, and account for 51% of car-related fatalities. 34% of adults and 75% of children sleep with a stuffed animal, or a blanket, or other sentimental object as their comfort object. That the remains found in Machu Picchu are 80% female. They don't think that's true anymore. George Eaton, one of the first archaeologists that studied the Machu Picchu skeletons, classified sex based on height. Like, if the skeleton was over 5 feet 6 inches, it must be a man, right? He didn't consider that the Inca population might not have the same genetics as his friends from back home. Turns out he was probably wrong. If you and your spouse have both divorced, and one, or both, of you had more than one divorce, your marriage is 93% certain to fail. Statistically, almost 100% of marriages end in death or divorce. Almost? Some end by alien abduction. It's rare, but it happens. Marriage doesn't exist in space. In the US, 1. Only 3% of foster kids will ever obtain a college degree at any point in their life. 2. After reaching the age of 18, 20% of the children who are in foster care will become instantly homeless. That's roughly 4,000 kids a year. 3. Only 50% of foster youth will have gainful employment by age 23. 4. 7 out of 10 girls who age out of the foster care system will become pregnant before the age of 21. 5. 40% of men in prison were foster kids at some point in their lives. 6. The numbers vary from state to state, but anywhere between 60 to 85% of sex trafficking victims were previously in the child welfare system. My wife and I are in the final stages of becoming foster parents, hoping to adopt. These statistics are very sobering. They reinforce our decision, though. Former foster parent here. The training and books all talk about living with a traumatized child, but nothing prepares you for it. It's brutal. My husband and I had nightmares the whole first week from the stories he told us. Traumatized children can attempt to sabotage your marriage in a bid to see how stable their new environment is. Stay strong. You and your wife are welcome to DM anytime you need to. In our situation, we fostered a relative whose parents we weren't close to, but the kid went back to his dad after a year and they're doing very, very well. The 4 of us have become an unconventional family unit. It's worth the occasional agony of our situation. The average drunk driver drives under the influence more than 80 times before they get caught. National Geographic found in 2018 that only 9% of all plastic worldwide gets recycled. A study in the US by the Environmental Protection Agency found only 8.4% of US waste was recycled. Biffa Waste Services Ltd was caught sending over 1,000 tons of private home waste to India labeled as paper so you pay less per container, for profit. Basically, recycling is a depressing joke. The human eye blinks about 4.2 million times a year on average. This made me manually blink. I'm currently very consciously not blinking, just to be rebellious. The birthday paradox. The fact if you have 23 random people there is a 50% change to have the same birthday. Because planes were being produced at such an unbelievable rate, Britain possessed more planes at the end of the Battle of Britain than at the beginning. I'm likewise always stunned by the scope of American naval production during the war. On the day Pearl Harbor got attacked, there were 8 carriers in the Pacific Fleet. By May 1945 there were 99. That 49% of Pakistanis marry a first cousin and 8% marry a second cousin. In rural areas of Pakistan up to 80% of people marry a cousin. In Britain, Pakistanis make up 2% of the population but account for 30% of children with genetic diseases. That's because on average 55% of them, but up to 70% in some areas, practice first cousin marriage. I grew up in a town with a very large Pakistani population, and about 20 years ago there was a criminal case into the neglect of an adult with severe mental and physical disabilities. After that, there was a big influx of people with similar disabilities that appeared in the town, all having seemingly been hidden away their entire lives. It was really sad. 18% of all boating accidents are caused by people trying to pee over the side. If every star in the Milky Way had 1 billion planets and every planet had 1 billion people and each person had 1 billion decks of cards and each deck was shuffled 1 billion times a second starting with the Big Bang, you would only just now be running out of unique arrangements. So if you thoroughly shuffle a deck of cards, it is almost complete mathematical certainty that arrangement of cards has never before existed in human history. Winning the lottery 10 times in a row would be vastly more probable than randomly stacking a deck in the same order twice. When tested by another agency, TSA failed to detect weapons, bombs, and other destructive materials 95% of the time. But God help you if you bring a water bottle. That we are chronologically closer in time to the T-Rex than the T-Rex was to the Stegosaurus. We are about 66 million years after the T-Rex, but the Stegosaurus was about 85 million years before the T-Rex, 20 million years longer. Dinosaurs were around for a very long time. Humans, just a drop in the bucket, relatively evolved just a few 100,000 years for Homo sapiens. I swear there must have been a highly technologically advanced species of dinosaurs. Then came the World War Dino that resulted in one country chucking a huge asteroid at the planet while mass evacuating their population to Venus, where they abused their new home to no end until it became what it is today, which ultimately either drove them out of our system or they faced extinction due to the atmosphere that is no longer compatible with life. Innocent people will admit to a crime they never committed 43% of the time. Turns out that if you harass and/or threaten people, they'll say whatever the hell you want. Exactly why torture is considered to be ineffective as a means of gathering information. Though numbers have slightly inflated due to the pandemic, it remains that only about 4 in every 10 Americans wash their hands after using the bathroom. IRC, about 60% of women, and only 35% of men. Everyone got gross pee-pee poopa hands. What is the most interesting statistic you know? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.